The Philadelphia Eagles just surprised a lot of people at training camp, as after making a completely unexpected trade for a new offensive weapon, the Birds also may have just leaked plans to utilize Cooper DeJean at another new position. So in this video, I'll break that down. Plus, Jalen Hurts, Jahan Dotson, and the Eagles offense made a statement during practice, while we also got some huge updates on the battle at the cornerback position, as there's a chance we do have our answer there after all. So let's talk about that and all the other latest news from Eagles camp starting right now. Alright, so again, the Eagles were back out on the practice field today for what is their third to last practice of training camp, as they now have just 2 more practices before their final preseason game against the Jets on Friday. And after that, camp will have officially come to a close, and the focus will then shift to roster cutdown day, as that's not very far away. But before we get into any of that or what happened at practice today, let's first rewind and shift our focus back to what happened on Sunday. As of course, right when everyone was busy talking about the Birds' preseason game against the Browns, Howie Roseman shocked everybody by making a move that nobody saw coming. As I'm sure you all saw by now, the Eagles made a trade with the Houston Texans, sending them tight end Harrison Bryant and a 5th round pick in exchange for wide receiver John Metchie III and a 6th round pick, which again came as a huge shock to everybody. And I actually broke down this entire trade from my initial reactions to the possible reasons for it in a live stream that I did on Sunday, so I'll give you the quick edited down version here. But my instant reaction to seeing this news was that this is just, it's really strange. Like, it's a really strange, unexpected, interesting move, because I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that Howie Roseman was going to make a trade. Like, I expected him to make a move, very late into the offseason. He does that every single year. But wide receiver was about last on the list of positions I thought the Eagles might try and target, just because, obviously they're stacked at that position. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you got Jahan Dotson, and then even behind those top 3 guys, you got, Johnny Wilson, who looked really good in that first preseason game and is definitely a lock to make the team, in my opinion. And then you got Anaya Smith, who obviously the Birds drafted last year, so I feel like they'd probably want to keep him around. And then you got Darius Cooper, who's been probably one of the bigger surprises at training camp, maybe the biggest surprise at training camp so far. Again, like, my initial reaction to the trade was that I just didn't quite get it. Because again, I don't think we need him. And now I'm curious as to what this means for, a guy like Darius Cooper or someone like Anaya Smith. Like, does that mean they're not going to make the team now? I don't know. Now, as far as John Metchie himself goes, like, I think he's an interesting player. He missed his entire first season, and then the last 2 years, he hasn't really put up big numbers at all. I believe it was like just a little over 100 yards in that first year and then over 200 yards last year. Can't quite remember. But yeah, it's not like he's done anything that noteworthy during his NFL career so far. Now, that said, he does have some nice potential. He's a guy that could probably play in the slot. He's got some speed. And just be a versatile weapon. It's just Jahan Dotson, in my opinion, is better. There's been a lot of positive buzz about him during training camp, as he had this entire offseason now just to get acclimated with the offense, with the rest of the guys, Jalen Hurts. And, he's looked good during training camp so far. I think it's pretty clear Jahan Dotson's still your wide receiver 3. And I guess John Metchie's just going to come in here and try and be a good depth piece. So the full trade compensation is that the Eagles got John Metchie and a 6th round pick, and the Texans got tight end Harrison Bryant and a 5th round pick. And at this point, I think we pretty much all knew that Harrison Bryant was not going to make the roster. So, I will say this, like, it's not like you're risking anything with this trade. And I'm pretty sure these draft picks here, this 5th round pick and this 6th round pick, are the same picks that were in that CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. And I'm pretty sure they just swapped them back. So it's really interesting how it all comes full circle there. One of my first thoughts after I saw that this trade happened is that maybe it has something to do with the A.J. Brown injury, because obviously he's missed a good chunk of time during training camp, probably the last 2 or 3 weeks with this hamstring injury. Part of me is like, well, maybe the A.J. Brown injury is a little bit worse than they're, telling us. Maybe it's something that's going to linger on throughout the season, so they wanted to get some extra depth at wide receiver. So that's why they made this trade for Metchie. But even then, it's like, I feel like the guys that they have behind AJ, Devontae, and Jahan Dotson, I feel like I would trust them well enough to step up in AJ's absence, as long as he's not out for too long. And it's not like Metchie's a guy who's like super established in the league, and like it's not like he's like a sure thing, is what I'm saying. So I don't know. Maybe they just, I think ultimately what happened, like I said earlier, is that, they like John Metchie coming out of the draft. They saw an opportunity to get him. The Texans were trying to trade him, and, they didn't have to give up really anything to get him. So they were like, all right, why not? Let's just make a trade, get John Metchie in here, see what he can do. But, it's interesting. Just having another day to think about this trade, the more I continue to see it as just a solid trade to add some depth at the wide receiver position and also get a high upside player for pretty much no cost whatsoever. I mean, I'm not expecting Metchie to come in here and make an immediate impact right away. I mean, he's never really been that guy, and he's likely just the number 4 wide receiver on this team right now. So again, I don't have huge expectations for him, but he does have some exciting ability, as he's a good route runner, as you can see by some of these clips here. He's got some good speed and just good overall versatility. So for the cost at which they got him, again, I think it is very much worth it to just bring him in and see what he can do. So, again, we'll see how it goes. Now, on top of this trade, we also got a report yesterday from NFL insider Jordan Schultz saying that the Birds might not be done yet. As he tweeted out, quote, "Don't think the Eagles are done with trades. They have so many picks next year, and that team is always going to be aggressive." And yeah, honestly, that wouldn't surprise me either, because for one, they got obviously a ton of ammo to make more trades with those 13 draft picks next year, and two, it's Howie Roseman, so there's always something up his sleeve, and maybe that could possibly be a move to add another cornerback or safety, but, we'll just have to wait and see. And also, just real quick to throw this out there, I have seen the opinion thrown around on social media that maybe the Eagles could now trade Jahan Dotson, or they want to trade Jahan Dotson since they just got John Metchie. But personally, I just don't see them doing that. I mean, Dotson has had a really good offseason, and I think he's going to have a much better year 2 in Philly. And Metchie, let's be real, he's not a sure thing. So, again, I don't see Dotson going anywhere, but, we'll just have to wait and see what kind of moves, if any, the Eagles still want to make. And obviously, again, corner is the main position that I would be on the lookout for, but who knows? Maybe at this point, they don't need to add another guy there, because the new guy that they just traded for a little over a week ago at this point in Jakorian Bennett seems to be coming along very nicely. As of course, like I talked about in my last video, Bennett performed very well in the preseason game against the Browns. He, of course, had that nice pass breakup, and then just watching him here on the All-22 tape, it's pretty clear that he had good coverage all game long. I mean, just look at some of these reps. That's pretty impressive, especially for a guy who just got here not even 2 weeks ago and who still has a lot of learning and adjusting to do. Now, he did have some iffy moments, including a blown assignment on a mesh concept, and also he was pretty handsy at times, and if he's not careful, he could get called for a penalty in a real game situation. But that said, this is all stuff that can be cleaned up, especially once he learns the defense more and just gets more comfortable. So again, I'm pretty excited about Jakorian Bennett right now, especially since before practice on Monday, Vic Fangio said that he's neck and neck with the other guys in the race for the starting cornerback job.
Not yet. I think all the guys are pretty even right now. And Jacory just got here, got a full week last week. Need to give him a full opportunity with the other guys.
Are you disappointed at all that no one has just run away with that job?
Well, not really. I mean, they're close, Usually it does become pretty obvious to everybody as to who's going to win the job. That hadn't happened yet. I think they all have done a good job in and of their own way. Had good moments, not so good moments. So we haven't reached that conclusion yet.
Yeah, so on one hand, again, I definitely like that Jakorian Bennett is firmly in the race to start at cornerback, and he's going to get a fair opportunity to do so. But on the other hand, though, I still definitely do very much have my concerns about the cornerback position. I mean, reporter Elliot Shore-Parks just speculated today that if the Birds played the Cowboys tomorrow, it would probably be Adoree Jackson starting opposite Quinyon Mitchell, as he got the majority of first-team reps there during Monday's session, while Kelee Ringo didn't really get any run with the first team, which, if that were to happen, I definitely would not feel very good about it. So that's definitely not ideal that that's where we're at this point in camp. And again, nobody has really stood out or separated themselves very much at that cornerback position, which isn't great. But again, at least they now have the new guy in Bennett that could potentially bail them out and be a quality starter if he just keeps trending in the right direction. But now, staying with the cornerback position, we also have an interesting development there regarding Cooper DeJean. As of course, this offseason, DeJean has spent time at multiple different positions in the secondary, those being his primary spot at slot cornerback, and also at safety in base sets. But Monday was a bit different, as before practice, Vic Fangio revealed that he was going to be spending some time at another new position as well.
At the beginning of camp, you mentioned at the beginning of camp that we'd see Cooper DeJean at outside cornerback. We have not seen that yet. Why is that?
I watched today's practice.
Is it coming?
He'll be out there a little bit.
Yeah, so as promised, Cooper DeJean did end up seeing some reps at outside cornerback on Monday, which again is definitely very interesting considering that his play was already pretty much full playing those other two positions, but hey, if he can handle it, then why not, right? And it's definitely super impressive that a second-year player like DeJean not only is one of the best players at his primary position in the entire league, but also that he can handle the pressure of playing multiple different positions across the entire secondary. Like, that's not easy to do, yet Coop has seemingly taken the challenge head on.
Nah, Coop's nice. Coop's nice. He like you said, he can do everything because people look at his physical attributes, but I feel like it's all mental, really. You know, like, he's smart, one of the smartest guys in the room. And so to be able to play all those positions, you got to be smart, you know. So, yeah, Coop, he's a guy.
I love it, man. Like, Coop is one of the guys, even though he's young, he's come in like he's a vet. You know, he know all the in and outs of our defense and everything Coach Vic got going for us. You know, he helps the younger guys like me and Makuba, all of us, you know, just even though Makuba is a safety, Coop plays safety too, so, you know, he knows all the in and outs, and I love everything for him.
Shout out to Cooper DeJean. I mean, it's just insane how good and versatile of a player he's become in such a short amount of time, and it really helps out the defense that they do have a guy who can play all those different positions on the back end at a high level. Now, no, before anybody asks, there is no chance that DeJean could primarily switch to outside corner and that be his main position, as Fangio shut down that thought in his press conference today, but still, good to see him getting reps there during practice, as well as all the other positions on the back end, and I do think that DeJean very well could get snaps at all three spots during the season, just depending on what the Eagles need him to do. Now, moving on though, we actually did have a nice development at linebacker on Monday as well. For the first time in a long time, Zach Bond was back doing some 11-on-11 team drills, and while Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was first up next to him in those drills, we also were able to see the pairing of Bond and Jihaad Campbell for the first time all offseason, which that's likely a preview of what's to come not just early this season, but also for what's to come in future seasons. So that was definitely very nice to see, and Campbell also made a nice play at one point, getting a good pass breakup, so that was nice to hear as well. But now, switching over to the offensive side of the ball, Jalen Hurts and company actually had a really good day, which is obviously awesome to hear after all the struggles that they had last week against the Browns, as apparently, Hurts in the passing game looked the best they've looked in a while during camp, as QB1 finished 18 for 25 on his throws with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. And he was particularly good in situational drills, as he threw a touchdown on 4th down to tight end Kylan Granson, and he followed that up with a very nice completion to Devontae Smith in the back corner of the end zone with Cooper DeJean in good coverage. And on top of that, he also had some really good throws on 3rd down to Dallas Goedert and Jahan Dotson. Speaking of which, Dotson also apparently had a very good practice, with Tim McManus noting that he had one of his better practices during all of training camp, and at one point, he had a nice play to get open against Quinyon Mitchell on a crosser to secure the catch. So again, I don't think there's any question that Jahan Dotson is going to be this team's wide receiver 3 this year, and I think he's going to have a much better year than he did last year. And overall, it was just nice to see Dotson, Jalen Hurts, and the rest of the offense have a good day, especially through the air. But now, moving on, obviously, like I said, there's now a little bit more competition at the wide receiver position just with the addition of John Metchie yesterday, and like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be right down to the wire for guys like Darius Cooper and Ainias Smith as to whether or not they'll make the team or not. But for Cooper specifically, again, I do think the Eagles still like him a lot and want to give him a legit chance to make this team. And at this rate, he very well might, as on Monday, Cooper had a few impressive moments, including at one point getting some run with the first team offense and hauling in a pass downfield from Jalen Hurts on the sideline, and he also had back-to-back catches on Kelee Ringo at one point, with one being on a very nice route that created a lot of separation. So again, Darius Cooper just continues to be very impressive in the opportunities that he gets, and even with John Metchie now here, he is making a very compelling case to make this roster. Staying at wide receiver though, A.J. Brown missed practice once again with that hamstring injury, which on one hand, obviously, I don't like that, but Mike Garafolo is reporting that the Eagles are just playing it safe with him and trying to just not rush him back too early. So, I'm trying to stay calm. I'm not too worried about it at this current moment. And also, in other news, A.J. Brown actually just made it onto the NFL's top 100 list at number 29 overall. So, shout out to him for that, and it's very well deserved. But now, all that being said, obviously the Eagles now have 2 more practices before their final preseason game against the Jets on Friday. So you guys know I'm going to be covering all that just as well as everything else Eagles related as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. So if you don't want to miss it, make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications, and also leave a like down below to show some support because it really does help me out a ton, so you can get to at least 500 likes on today's video. And also just leave a comment regarding anything that I talked about in this video. What are your thoughts on the John Metchie trade, and what are your biggest takeaways from Monday's practice? Again, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And also, if you do want to watch another Eagles video recapping their preseason game against the Browns, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.